Hi to all, my name is Zai. Played Quake for over 17 years, now I'm passing on the experience about mice and gaming. So I'm going to try a new format for this video, and that's a mouse versus my top 5, seeing how it compares. The best buttons are on the G302, and the V300, and the Roccat Kone Pure. Rapoo V300, Logitech G302, Corsair Sabre, straight away you can tell that the right click is a lot different to the left. Myonix Castor, and the Roccat Kone Pure. Now all of these mice appear to be using Omron switches. They're some of the best, especially for mobile players. The implementation is different, as you would have heard. That's mostly because of the shell, probably the plastics used. But the Corsair Sabre seems to be between the G302 or 3 and the Myonix Castor. So the Myonix Castor are a bit too light, G302 are pretty much perfect, the Sabre feels in between, but they're actually really good. Still, I'd have to give the win to the G302. As for the DPI buttons, the front is really stiff, the back one is not. That might just be a design flaw, but that actually did give me a bit of an issue. Side buttons, very little travel, quite crisp, I do enjoy using them. Spare button on top, quite good to use. I'm not sure why they didn't just have 2 buttons there though. It seems odd to have one big button. My favourite scroll wheel is the Roccat Kone Pure, but a lot of people like the G302, so let's just have a quick test. So straight away you will notice that the G302 is actually the loudest. I like the Kone Pure because it's quiet, very smooth, and it feels great. The reason the G302 is so popular is because of the tactile feedback. You can really tell the steps. The Kone Pure though, you can really tell the steps as well. And the same goes for the Sabre. This is actually a very good mouse wheel. And even when you use it quickly, it's not too loud. I'm not sure which one I prefer, they're both really good. I still don't like the G302 wheel though. Now let's do the all-important rattle test. And yes, there is a slight rattle in this, but it's on the same level as the Zowie EC2A. So really not much, not an issue for me. Now let's do the tap test. So other than that slight rattle, this is a really well made mouse. And just so you know, I did hold down all the buttons and tested, it still has a rattle. The rattle is coming from down here somewhere, so it's probably the lens as usual. The best materials and textures are on the Rapoo V300, which has a sandy rubber feel, really nice, and the Roccat Kone Pure Laser, which has a smooth rubber coat. The Sabre has a rubber coat more like the Kone Pure, although it's more textured, which might be easier to grip. The buttons have a sticky rubber coat for some reason, so you can see here, there's a lot of dust sticking to that section of the mouse. So it seems like they've used a different texture. Even when I try to rub that off, it just seems to stay on there. It's really hard to clean. So Corsair, whatever that material is, I would suggest not using it. They've probably used it for better grip, but now it grips everything, even dust. Personally, I'd prefer these textures on the Rapoo V300, and the sides on the Roccat Kone Pure, although I think they might be slippery for some people. The Corsair Sabre I don't think will be as slippery, and I think it'll suit more people in that regard. So the V300 wins, but the Sabre has very nice materials and textures anyway. The cable holds its shape, but hasn't been a problem for me. It's a high quality braid, however we're trying to move away from braided cables now, because they scrape against the pad. The best cable is on the Zowie EC2A. Just smooth rubber, nice and easy. So easy win, I definitely prefer the one on the EC2A. Still, the Sabre cable, even though it's braided, it's actually very good, and it's 1.8 meters long for those interested. The smoothest mouse feet, also on the EC2A. The Sabre though, is not far behind, it's actually very smooth. I've been amazed at how well this mouse actually glides across the pad. Now an important part is a look at the shape. You see that it has wings on both sides. This is a mouse for people who like to have rest their thumb on the mouse and also their little finger. and you can tell by the bottom just how wide it looks with that. And interestingly, they've gone with the mouse cable on the right side. It appears to be held in there by a bit of rubber here. The EC2A, in my opinion, has the best shape. It's perfectly balanced, extremely comfortable for all grips, and I just love this mouse. That's for people with hands between 17 and 19 centimeters. If your hand's above that, you might want to go with the EC1A. Smaller hands may struggle, but I think it will suit a lot of people anyway. The EC2A has a ratio near 2 to 1, being about 11 centimeters long on the base and 5.5 centimeters at the grip width. So between your thumb and your fingers over here. The Corsair Sabre, obviously an odd shape, across the base is actually about 8 centimeters. And the grip width, hard to say, but I'm guessing it's about 6.5. The length of the base is about 10 centimeters, but the actual length is about 11.7. So it doesn't have the ratio that I like. I would have preferred the mouse without the wings, but I know through comments on this channel that some people love having them. So this is a mouse for those people. Actually, modular design would have been great here, because then we could choose. It's also a bit shorter than most mice, at just over 3.5 centimeters. Most are about 4 centimeters high. So for shape, easy win for the EC2A. The weight of the EC2A is about 95 grams. Generally, we want mice under 100 grams, unless people prefer heavy mice, in which case they'd want over that. The Corsair Sabre, with a little bit of cable as well, is about 96 grams. So despite the wings, it still maintains a good weight. My favourite grooved buttons are on the Rapoo V300. These are super comfortable. It's one of my favourite features of the mouse actually. The Sabres are pretty much flat, so no contest there. V300 wins that. Grip styles, as I was saying, the EC2A suits most. The Sabre suits palm a little bit. For me, it's more of a fingertip / palm grip mouse. Hands under 17 centimeters, I'd say palm grip. 17 to 19, probably fingertip, and claw, maybe a little bit of palm. Hands over 20 centimeters, fingertip, and claw, maybe. Unlikely palm though, I think it is a bit short. Now the Death Adder Chroma isn't in my top 5, but the Sabre is meant to have the 3988 sensor. The Death Adder has the 3989, which is a slightly modified 3988. The 3989 in the Death Adder Chroma is the most responsive sensor I've ever used. It is ridiculously snappy. So let's test it against that. Which one's more responsive? Now I've just done some testing, and the Death Adder Chroma still seems more responsive. The Corsair Sabre does have a very good performance, but it's like the other mice with 3310 sensors and others. They're very good, don't get me wrong, but the Death Adder is just on another level. There's something about that responsiveness that just feels amazing. As soon as you change to another mouse, they actually feel a bit heavier than they really are, because the Death Adder might be a few grams heavier, about the same as the Sabre, and yet the Sabre actually does feel heavier because of the responsiveness of the sensors. Next test, I've also done this at 400 dpi. Going to move the mouse very slowly, precision. This is zoomed in at 1 FAV. Can't go any further in than this. And we see very nice and smooth tracking. The sensor performs very well at 3200 and 400 dpi. As for drawing straight lines, there's no angle snapping on. Just human error being shown. Doesn't seem to skip either. So the sensor performs very well. I've tried the lift-off movement test where I just pick up the mouse like this. There is no Z-axis bug, so that's all good. You can change the lift-off distance in the software. At high, it tracks between 2 and 3 DVDs, that's about 2.8mm and 4.2. At low, it tracks between 1.4 and 2.8, so 2 DVDs. The DPI ranges from 100 to 6400 in increments of 100. You have 5 different DPI modes, and you can set a different color for each one of them. You can then match the next 3 lighting zones: solid color, color shift, or pulse. Color shift you can have alternating between 2, or you can have rainbow applied to all zones, and you see you have a nice smooth gradient on the mouse. Something weird that I noticed though, if you set the mouse color to say yellow-green like that, apply to all zones, that comes up as more of just a weak yellow. Clearly not the same color. I mean, that is blue, but it's not the blue that I've selected. So while this is an RGB mouse, I've noticed this on a lot of them, they don't actually have all the colors available when you're selecting them in singular. Not a big deal though, just something that I thought I'd note. You can alter the buttons in here with a whole range of options, including macro. Corsair software is fairly advanced, but you just create new action. You'll be able to start the macro recording here, text, shortcut, DPI, timer, mouse, and media control. Now, the important question is, can I aim the mouse? The answer is yes, kind of. It's not the most comfortable, but surprisingly, I played fairly well. Here are some of the highlights from my games with it, and best of all, I didn't mind using it. It was actually kind of fun. So for people who like wings, I'd assume this is going to be a great option. For others, I think the shape is the deal breaker. In conclusion, this might be a great mouse for MOBA players who need good buttons and a solid sensor, with a fairly comfortable shape. It has extra buttons, so it might be decent for someone who plays RPGs as well. For first-person shooters though, it's good, but only if you like the wings, otherwise I recommend slimmer mice like the EC2A. It's a solid mouse with high quality features, and compared to the top 5, it only comes up short in a lot of the categories, which is very impressive. It's worth the price, but again, only if you like the wings. Will it take the spot of any mice in the current top 5? The answer is no, again, it's the wings. If it had all its features and had the shape of the EC2A, I would actually love it if that was the case. But you might want to check out the Myonix Naos 7000 if you want a mouse like this. I'd say they're in competition with each other. So thanks for watching, hope that helps. I'll leave some Amazon links in the description if you want to buy it and help support the channel. Subscribe for more mouse reviews and gaming videos, like and share this one, and I'll catch you in the next.